Hey everyone, and welcome to Hooked on Needles and Crafts. Today we're going to be doing another itty bitty knit kit that I got from Five Below. For my returning subscribers, thank you so much for tuning in, and for my new viewers, please consider subscribing, share, hit that like button, leave a comment below, and click on that notification bell for future videos. So today you guys, I'm doing a viewer request. This was requested a while ago, but I happen to have gone to a Five Below recently and I found Mr. Mallard, so I'm going to be doing that today. I know I have a whole bunch of Hobby Lobby kits, but we're going to take a little break so I can fit this in. If you have a request, leave a comment below, and I will try to get that out for you. If you don't want to wait for me to find the kit, you can always email me a clear image of the instructions and I'll try to help you out that way. If you need priority over my list, definitely check out my memberships. There's some benefits other than video priority requests that will be beneficial to you. I have just 2 levels, so if you click join, you don't automatically join. It just takes you to the little prompt that describes what you'll be getting for each tier. Alright, so let's get into this. It's been a while since I've seen any kits at my local Five Below. I've only seen the ones that I've already done. I've checked their website too, and they actually do have Halloween ones coming that was posted, but it was all grayed out. You can't click on them, so I'm going to assume that the Halloween ones are coming soon, but yeah, I don't know. So again, this was requested, so I wish I can somehow get a hold of Bright Stripes to probably let me know when they get kits in, but I don't think that's possible. Anyway, comes with the spools of yarn. We have green and brown. Then we have our little packet here, and inside we're going to have our stuffing, felt stickers, our knitting needles, and then our plastic sewing needle. Just so that we don't get this dirty, I'm going to put the stuffing back into the little packet here, along with the felt stickers, and just so that I don't lose it, I'm going to put my sewing needle in here. You always want to try to save all your tools that you use for these kits because you never know if you're going to need it. Alright, along with that we get this instructional booklet. Now, I do a lot of these and I always say that I do like their kits. Sometimes the material is lacking, but for the most part the kits are pretty nice. Sometimes there's typos and errors, I feel, but we'll get to that when we get to that. But anyway, I can't show you what's inside these instructions due to copyright, so if you do want to go and make Mr. Mallard, I highly recommend that you go and get this kit yourself, again, either on the website or at your local Five Below. What I do on my channel is that I help you understand the instructions. I also teach you how to do the stitches at least 3 times step by step, and thereafter I go my own pace. If you need to speed or slow down the video, click on the gear button in the corner. There's playback options to go fast or slow. If you don't need to hear me talk, you can lower the volume on your device and click on the CC button, closed caption button. So oddly enough, I get a lot of comments of people telling me to keep my mouth shut and just start doing it, which is really rude. But anyway, I do it because not everyone is going to automatically know what to do. Some people need this part just like some people need the visual part. The visual part is the booklet. If you can't do the booklet, that's what this video is about. If this video doesn't help you, you can always go on their website and try out their videos. So it's kind of unnecessary to kind of say things that are you think are for yourself. No, this is for the general masses. You could always click on the chapters in the description box, so you don't have to wait for me to finish talking, by the way. So let's get started on this, shall we? I like the instructions because they have illustrations along with text. Again, everyone has their way of learning. The way that I do this is not the only way to do it. I do it the easiest way for myself, so maybe that way will be easy for you as well. We're gonna do the hardest rectangle here first. The other two rectangles are small and fairly easy, so I'm gonna do those off camera. We're gonna start with the color green, and you're gonna have to unravel this. I'm not fond of unraveling this, but if you want, you can unravel the whole thing and roll it up into a ball. If you have a spool machine, you can use that too and make your own spools. I just like to open it like this, and then I have a little container that I put in the middle so that it can like spin around it, and I put this off to the corner here. Alright, so in the instructions you have an illustration of a rectangle. You can see there's green, a stripe of brown, a stripe of green, and then a section of brown. On the left there's a dimension in inches, and that's going to tell you how long your rectangle should be. I also get comments on how their stitch counts do not add up to the measurements, and this is one of the things that I do not like of this kit. That is so true. You're not always gonna follow the same number of rows that they tell you to, and it's gonna match the dimension that they tell you. So I always say, when you make these rectangles, disregard the row count. You're gonna want to knit it to where it measures that length in inches. So let's do the first rectangle. The first line is talking about getting some tail. That didn't sound right. Getting some tail, and this is going to be used to sew your pieces together. So off camera, I'm going to measure my tail. Conveniently, there's a ruler inside the booklet, so I'm gonna go ahead and measure that. So let me just gather up some yarn here. Okay, and then I'm gonna measure off the tail. Okay, so once you've measured your tail, pinch it right where that measurement is. Okay, this is all of the tail that we're going to be using to sew our pieces together. So this I'm going to put aside off to the left and off my table. The feeder yarn is this strand here that's connected to the spool. We can move this out of the way. And I'm keeping this pinch fairly tightly. So now what we're going to do is a cast on with a slip knot. Alright, so the way you do this is we're going to keep the thumb and the index finger tight. We're going to take our middle finger and ring finger and hold apart the yarn like this. So this is going to be loose, this is going to be tight. We're going to take two fingers here and we're going to push up, and then we're going to twist it down so that we create a loop, a huge loop. Then we're going to take the middle finger and the index finger and grab this feeder yarn, and we're going to pull it through that large loop, creating a large knot. So we all seen what a knot looks like. Let us tighten up the knot. So when I tighten up this knot, I want it to be as close to my thumb as possible. This is going to eliminate the amount of waste that you make. I did say that these kits are nice, but sometimes, it's been rare, they don't give you enough yarn. So it's very upsetting when that happens. So what I try to do is limit the amount of waste that I make. So tighten up your knot. I'm going to pull on the feeder yarn here and just tighten this up, trying to get it close to your thumb. All right, and once you've tightened that up, you want to make sure that that knot is nice and snug. So we're going to take our tail and we're just going to pull in the opposite direction to tighten up that knot. You don't have to pull it too tight, just have to pull enough to make it snug. And then I'm going to hold on to this knot. We have this huge loop that we have to make small. So I'm going to take the feeder yarn and I'm going to gently pull it until the hole or the loop is small enough to fit a couple of knitting needles. Okay, so here we have our little loop. You can take your knitting needles and slip them through the loop. You can tighten or loosen the loop as you need to. But now we're going to start the next steps. Okay, so now we're going to cast on some stitches. We're going to leave this tail here. Remember, this is the tail that we reserved to sew all the pieces together later. You're going to have that off to the left and off your table. We're going to have our feeder yarn always kind of on the right or upper right. So to cast on stitches, we're going to kind of start a knit stitch. So what you want to do is get into a knit stitch position. That's taking your needles and making an X. You want your right needle at the bottom and your left needle on top. You always want to maintain contact with your needles. So as I hold this with my index and middle and thumb, and you look at it on the top here, you can see there's a very tiny piece of surface that's always going to be touching. This is going to prevent you from losing your yarn overs and stitches. So while you're holding these two needles together touching, we're going to grab our feeder yarn and we're going to wrap around the right needle, going from back to forward, and then I'm going to move my finger out of the way. Then we're going to pull the feeder yarn down in between these two needles. You might hear or feel it snap because you're holding these two needles together. You want to get it into this little triangle space here and get that locked in, as you see right there. Okay, then I'm going to gather up some feeder yarn around my finger, and then what we're going to do is we're going to slide our left needle down our right needle, over the tip, down the back, maintaining contact with our needles. This is going to force the feeder yarn through this loop. Okay, so we're going to do this 3 times, so maybe I'll show you this in different angles. Let's slide our left needle down our right needle, over the point, down the back, forcing that feeder yarn through the loop, creating a new stitch. So now we just have to transfer the new stitch over to the left side. So take your left needle, poke through that new stitch, and then we're going to just lift it off the right needle. So now we have 2 stitches on here. Let's do another one. You're going to take your right needle, stick that through the new stitch on the left needle. You're going to want to get into the knit stitch position, so X your needles. The right needle is going to be at the bottom, left needle is going to be on top. You're going to always maintain contact with your needles. You want to take your feeder yarn and wrap it around the right needle from back to forward and around. I'm going to pull this down. You're going to feel or hear it snap because we are touching our needles at all times into that little space there. So now we're going to slide our left needle down the right needle, over the tip, down the back, so that it will force that feeder yarn through this loop. So let's do that now. Always maintain contact with your needles. Slide the left needle down the right needle, over the tip, and down the back, forcing that feeder yarn through the loop, creating a new stitch. And now we just have to transfer the new stitch over to the left. So take your left needle, we're going to go through that new stitch and lift it completely off the right needle. So now you should have 3 stitches on your left needle. So let's do one more together. Stick your right needle into the new stitch we just transferred over. Get into your knit stitch position. You're going to want your right needle at the bottom, left needle on top, always maintaining contact with your needles. We're going to take the feeder yarn and we're going to wrap it around the right needle from back to forward and down. You're going to feel or hear it snap because we're touching our needles together, and you want it to get it into that little space there. So from here we're going to slide our left needle down our right needle over the tip and down the back, forcing the feeder yarn through this loop. So let's do that now. Slide your left needle over the right, over the point, down the back, forcing that feeder yarn through the loop, creating a new stitch. So now we just have to transfer over this stitch onto the left needle. So take your left needle, poke through that new stitch, and we're going to lift it completely off the right needle. So you should have 4 new stitches on your left needle. So now that I've shown you how to cast on stitches at least 3 times step by step, you can rewind this video as many times as you need until you're comfortable doing casting on stitches on your own. But I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of the stitches required for this rectangle. And then I'll show you what to do next. So I don't, if we did stitch by stitch the way that I did it the last 3 times, we'll be here forever, and I usually have my videos at 2 hours long. So that's why I just say it's the same thing. It's going to be the same stitch over and over again until you make the stitch count. All right. Alright, so after you finish casting on your stitches, I highly recommend that you always check your counts to see if it matches what's written on the rectangle in the instructional booklet. But now I'm going to teach you how to do the next row, and we're going to be doing knit stitches. So this project, or these kits, are using mostly knit stitching, so you never have to kind of pay attention to the change of patterns, which is always good, which means I am going to show you how to do a knit stitch at least 3 times, and then for the remainder of the video it's probably going to be silent unless I'm showing you how to change colors. Alright, to do a knit stitch, it's almost the same as casting on, except we're not going to be transferring stitches from the right needle over to the left. We're going to be keeping it on the right needle. So essentially, the number of stitches that you have on your left needle, we're going to create on our right, and it should be the same number on here, and it should be completely gone from the left side. So let me show you how that works. So we're going to do our first knit stitch. Stick your needle into the top stitch here, get into your knit stitch position. We're going to do everything that we did before casting on. So hold your needles together, make sure they're touching at all times. We're going to take our feeder yarn and we're going to wrap it around the right needle from back to forward, and then we're going to pull it down. You might hear or feel it snap because the needles are touching each other into this crevice here. Then we're going to take our left needle, slide it down the right over the point, down the back, pushing the feeder yarn through this loop. So let's do that now. Slide the left down the right over the point and down the back, forcing the feeder yarn through that loop, creating a new stitch. So like I said, we're gonna basically take all these stitches and move it over to the next, move it over to the right stitch. So if you gain 1 stitch here, you have to lose 1 stitch here. So we're gonna gently push up our stitches, but we're only gonna flick off the top one. So go ahead and flick the top stitch off. So now you're +1 on this side, -1 on this side. If you add them all together, it should equal the amount that you started with. Alright, so let's do this again. Take your right needle, put it into the next top stitch here on the left. You want to get into your knit stitch position. We're going to knit like we have been doing, casting on stitches. We're going to take the feeder yarn and go back to forward, around. Then we're going to bring it down. You're going to hear it snap because we are touching our needles together into that crevice there. So then we're going to slide our left needle down the right needle over the point and down the back, forcing the feeder yarn through the loop, creating a new stitch. But we're gaining 1 stitch on the right, we're going to lose 1 stitch on the left. So again, gently push up your stitches, and you just want to flick off the top stitch. So we should have +2 on this side, -2 on this side. So let's do this one more time with you guys. Stick your needle into the next stitch. We're going to get into our knit stitch position, always maintaining contact with our needles. We're going to take our feeder yarn and we're going to wrap it from back to forward around the right needle, and then down. You're going to feel or hear it snap because we're touching our needles together into that little crevice there. Then we're going to slide our left needle down the right needle over the point and down the back, creating a new stitch. Since we've added a stitch on the right, we're going to lose a stitch on the left. Push up your stitches carefully, and we're just going to flick off the top stitch. So now we have 3 new stitches on the right, -3 stitches on the left. So now that I've shown you how to do the knit stitch at least 3 times step by step, You can go ahead and rewind this video as many times as you need until you're comfortable doing the knit stitch on your own. But I'm going to go ahead and finish the first portion of our rectangle. So I'm going to do the green. We do have to transition to brown, so I will be showing you how to do that. After this round, we're going to talk a little bit about finishing rows and what it should look like. But I'm going to do this next row in silence. Alright, so I finished another row of knitting. Now this is where it's going to look a little different because we've added a row. It's getting bigger, and here you can see it's rufflier, has ruffles. So what we're going to do is talk about that a little bit. When you flip over your project to the left so that you can do the next row, what you want to do is make sure that you twist your stitches so that whatever we made prior is nice and straight. So you saw that it was kind of bunching, kind of twisted like this. You just want to make sure you untwist that, and so that when we look at it at the front, you can see that all your stitches are aligned. Now the importance of doing that is because I get a lot of comments talking about increasing the stitch count and they don't know where it comes from. So I'm going to show you where it probably comes from. So if you don't have this straight, you can kind of distort what this looks like right now. So the way we have it is right. You can see all the stitches in the row, and your feeder yarn is kind of naturally going down. Your tail is going down. Everything should be growing downward. If you have it all twisted, you can get confused with what's a stitch and not. So let's kind of cover up these stitches. I'm specifically talking about this one. Now the last one is always going to be loose, but don't worry, as we do the next rows it will tighten and even itself out. But there's always a possibility that you can accidentally have your feeder yarn instead of going down and back like it has, you can see here, it's going to accidentally go up and back, and that's just a beginner thing. I was doing that when I started out. So let me show you what happens when you have it up and back. You're going to see this one stitch here, it's going to turn into two. So we're going to take the feeder yarn and take it up and back. So you see how that now turns into two? As a beginner, that's an easy mistake to do, and it's not, don't beat yourself up on it like I've done it. But when you're looking at it like this now, you're gonna think that that's where you have to put your needle in this one and put your needle in this one. But if you look closely, your tail is now kind of trying to go up and hang down. Your feeder yarn is kind of back. You can always say down and back, but you can't really see that because it's back here, as opposed to what it looked like before. And then also, when we look at our stitches like we did, if we're trying to straighten it out, you can go down the front, see all the stitches are aligned, and then when you get to the end here, you can see that it's kind of roller coastering up. it's crawling upward. Also, if you turn this upside down, okay, and you try to pull this straight, you're going to see the same thing happens. The ruffles are kind of straight, but now it's kind of turning up and curling back. And that was a little exaggerated, but then also your tail is just flopping everywhere, you know. So what you want to do is straighten this out. Make sure that when you look at it front view, you can see all your stitches and that your feeder yarn is down and back. And here, like when it's down and back, you can see that it's down and back. When it's up and back, it's gone. Like, how do you really know that it's down and back, right? So going back down and straighten out this stitch here. This huge one here is always going to be huge at the end until you do the next row, but make sure that is in line with all the other stitches and you should have the right stitch count. Now there's a possibility that you accidentally increased one somehow, but that's why you're always going to count your stitches after each row. It's easier to catch the problem before it's too late. Well, not too late, but before you grow it, and then you have to undo a lot. So now that I've explained this part, we're just going to keep going back and forth until I get it to the length that I want. So I'm pretty much just going to divide the colors within this rectangle to make it look like the illustration. If you'd like, you can follow the row count that they give you, but I'm telling you already, it's probably not going to be the same. So again, I highly recommend that you go by the number of inches in the illustration, and then of course use the ruler that they provide you to measure your pieces. But I'm going to pop back in when we're going to transition to the brown so that I can show you how to do that. Alright, so I've made the green as long as I think it should be for this rectangle, and I'm going to show you now how to transition to the brown. So we're going to take this apart. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Okay, and I'm just going to split this. This one's a little messier, so it's having a little bit hard of a time here. All right. Okay, so we're not going to need a tail, but we're going to cast on with a slip knot again. So what you want to do, it has you like tying it, but I like to do it this way. So this time you're going to take your ring, pinky, and thumb and hold one end all the way at the end. Then you're going to take your index and middle finger and hold the other end. So you hold it apart like this. This is going to be tight, this is going to be loose. You're going to take your two fingers and push up the yarn and turn it down to create a huge loop. Then you're going to take your your middle finger and your index finger and take the feeder yarn and pull it through that huge loop, creating a huge knot. And then we're going to just tighten up the knot. I'm going to pull on the feeder yarn. You want to make it as close to your thumbnail as you possibly can. This is going to eliminate the amount of waste created. Once you've tightened up that knot, you can take the tail and pull it out in the opposite direction just to make the knot nice and snug. You don't have to pull it too hard, but this is the amount of yarn we wasted, so that's not too bad. Now we're going to grab our knot and make this loop small like we did before. So pull on the feeder yarn and pull it to where you can fit your needles. And we're going to set this aside for now and pick up our project. Alright, so I'm just going to gather a little bit of feeder yarn to create tension here. I'm going to insert my needle like I would for knitting. Now instead of using the green, I'm going to slip on the brown. Alright, and then we're just going to hold this back with our other fingers here, and we're going to do the same steps as we would do to make a knit stitch. So go ahead and do your knit stitch, and so that is an easy transition to brown. Alright, so now we can drop the green and continue on with our brown. So let's do that now. You can hold this green back for a little bit. Once you got the row going, you don't really need to hold it anymore. Just get a few stitches in, then you can let it go, and then just move on with your brown. So that is how you do a nice color change. Now I'm going to do a couple of rows with you because I want to show you what it looks like. There's going to be a right side and a wrong side to this rectangle, and it's going to be pretty easy to see which one is the right side. So we want our rectangle to match what's in the instructional booklet. So it looks like it's two colors and each section is nice and clean. And here's a tip. If I flip my needle front ways, when I'm doing the next row, you see how the greens attach here? Just so that it doesn't get twisted with the brown, you have to flip it back in the same but opposite direction that you started, so you don't twist your yarn together. But once I create this second row with the brown, I'm going to show you what it's looking like. Alright, so when we flip it over to, oops, I didn't do what I just said to do. So it's getting all tangled up here. You're going to flip it back the way that you flipped it over. Okay, so then everything is nice and not tangled. But you see, this is the right side, and you can tell because there's a clean transition between green and brown. If we flipped it back to its other side, you can see that this is not the right side, because we have a cut of green to brown, and then we have a cut of brown to green, and then it's going to go back to brown. So it's getting a little stripy on this side. So this side is not going to be the right side. This side is. Now, I'm gonna measure, well, no, I'm gonna do the rest in silence, really, but be aware of this next transition, because they're smaller strips now. They're not going to be this long, so feel free to keep measuring against the ruler to make sure you're making the stripes you know, at a certain length. But I'm going to do that in silence and then come back in when we transition back to green. All right, so now we're going to switch to green. And since it's already attached, it's fairly simple. So I'm just going to gather up some yarn here. Now, if this was a longer change, I would recommend scaling it up each row, but this is fairly small, so you don't need to kind of keep trailing it up. We're just going to stretch it up to the top. So we're just going to go about our knit stitches. You can hold the brown back just to have a little tension and pull on this loop here, and then we're just going to yarn over with the green and not the brown. And then of course when you're changing colors, you want to make sure that the two colors are on the same side, because then you're going to be stretching the color all the way across, which doesn't look nice. So, but this is going to be a tiny strip of green, and then we're going to go back to brown. When we come back to brown, I'm going to show you guys how to cut off the green and tie it up. When we sew everything together, we'll be able to hide any of the excess pieces. But it won't be too difficult. So let me just do the rest in silence, because this is gonna take a minute. Alright, so I finished the green. We're going to pick up with the brown. So let's just do a couple before we cut off the green. Well, actually, let's cut off the green now. So I'm going to cut about an inch or so of the green. We won't need this again, at least for this rectangle. And then I'm going to tie it twice around the brown to secure it, maybe 3 times. This yarn's pretty slick. And then we can just continue with the brown. So we'll be knitting it like we normally would with the brown. And so that's how you transition your colors. I'm just gonna do this row real quick and we'll just take a look at what we're working with here. Okay. So this is the right side. We have clean transitions of color. If we flip it over to this side, it's the wrong side because it has the stripes. So from here on out, I'm gonna work with the brown. When we come back, I'm gonna show you how to cast off the stitches and fasten off. I will be doing the other 2 rectangles off camera, but so I'm going to do the rest here in silence. So I'm afraid that I'm not going to have enough yarn for the other rectangles, so I'm going to take this as the last round. I could probably, I would have ideally loved to do 1, 2, 3, 4 more passes, and that's including the fasten off, but that's just not in the cards. So let me show you how to fasten off. We're gonna knit 2 stitches. In order to fasten off, you always have to have 2 stitches on your right needle. So what we're going to do here is we're going to leapfrog this stitch over the next stitch and remove it completely off the right stitch and then off the left. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Stick your left needle into this stitch right here. We're going to leapfrog it over the next. You can use your thumb to hold back that stitch, but we're going to take this one and pull it completely off the right and then completely off the left. So now we're left with 1 stitch. So again, you always have to have 2 stitches on your right to do this. So let's knit another stitch. Right? So we're going to leapfrog this stitch over the next, and we're going to pull it off the right needle and then off the left needle. So take your left needle, stick it through this stitch here, leapfrog it over the next. You can use your thumb to hold back that stitch while you take this one and pull it off the right needle and then off the left needle, leaving you with 1 stitch again. So let's do this one more time, you guys. So let's do a knit stitch. You're back to having 2 on the right needle. We're going to leapfrog this stitch over the next one, and then we're going to pull it off the right needle and then remove it off the left needle. So take the left needle, put it into this stitch here. We're going to leapfrog it over the next. You can use your thumb to hold that stitch back. We're going to pull this stitch off the right needle and then off the left needle, and we're left with 1. So now that I've shown you how to do a cast off at least 3 times step by step, you can rewind this video as many times as you need until you're comfortable doing the cast off on your own. But I'm going to finish the rest of the stitches here, and then when we get to the last one, I'll show you what you need to do next. Okay, so now for this last one, and let me see how much we're going to cut off, because we do have to sew this together, but ideally if you can have it and have enough yarn to do it, you want the green to sew with the green and the brown to sew with the brown. So let me just see how much yarn I have left. Alright, so I think I'll make it the same length as this one. Alright, this is all I have left. And that's because I did the other two off camera. But anyway, to fasten off, we're going to yarn over, and then it's going to act like that second stitch. So we're just going to pick up this stitch here. All right, then you're going to leapfrog it over the yarn over, and then you're going to pull it off the right needle and then off the left needle. And then we're just going to pull the right needle until all that yarn is all the way through that loop. And then we're going to just tighten this up, and we've completed our first rectangle. Okay, let me just curious. Yeah, so it's the size, it barely just made the size length of rectangle we needed. Again, ideally I would have loved to add 2 more rows, I mean 4 more rows, to make it the same as this one, but close enough. We ran out of yarn. Alright, so when we come back, we are going to assemble Mr. Mallard here. Again, if you need help doing the other 2 rectangles, just go back to the beginning of the video. I do have chapters in the description box, so you can just click to the section that you need. But yeah, the other 2 are fairly small, so it's going to be a lot quicker and easier to do now that you've done the hardest one. Right, so I have my other 2, and some other yarn. I have my other 2 pieces here. We're going to set this aside for now. I'm going to go into my packet, and I'm going to get my sewing needle. Now we have to put, we have to sew this together now. Okay. So for this, we have to make sure that the pretty side is on the outside. So we're going to flip this over. Alright, and then you're going to fold it in half. I'm going to take the brown here, and I'm going to use the brown yarn to sew the brown section. So line up the rows, and then we're just going to go ahead and do straight stitches. Okay, I'm going to go under this green and come back up, and I'm going to sew this little brown stripe here. And I don't know exactly where we're going to go from here with the brown, so I'm just going to leave it attached and remove this. But I am going to go ahead now and continue with the green. And if you look at the illustration, we're pretty much going to go all the way up the tube. So since the green is all the way up at the tube already, I'm just going to go back down and then go back up. And that's going to kind of give me like more of a secure stitch. because we're making a double pass at it. And we'll probably do the same with the brown because we'll eventually have to close this end as well. So like we did with the brown, we're just gonna go in and sew this little stripe of grain. Okay, and then we're just going to go back the other way. Okay, so when we get to the top of the tube here, I'm gonna tie a knot because when I start, we have to do a gathering stitch, and when we pull it, I don't want it to pull the side. So we're gonna do one last stitch here, and we're going to make a knot. Okay. Once you've secured a knot, then we're going to do a gather stitch. So we're pretty much going to go in and out on the edge of our tube. And then once you're on the other side, we're going to pull this and close the top. Now it just says to tie a knot, but I really want to make sure that I, close it, because even if you tie a knot here, there's still a little hole here. So I'm going to cross my stitches so that I know for sure that it's closed. Okay, once you've done that, then you can go and tie your knot. And then I don't know what we're doing after, so I'm just going to leave this here. So let's go on to the next part. We're going to be doing some stuffing. Now here's the thing though, we have to do some hair, and I think it would be very beneficial if we do it while this thing is still open and not stuffed. So let us take some, we're going to skip on over to where you do the hair. So I'm going to get some green here. And we're going to do this now. All right. So now that we've done that, it says to stitch onto the head. So let me just cut this. I feel like this needs to be more secure. Maybe I'll try tying a knot or something. Okay, so I just tied this up. Then I guess I'll take my needle, thread this back up. Alright, so oops, wrong one. This one. Right, we want this to come out of the middle of the head, so we have to fish this back into the center of the head. Okay. Then we're just going to stitch around. So I'm going to do this a bunch of times around it to make sure that it is nice and stuck in there. So coming up here where I tied it, I'm just going to double knot to secure it in. Double knot. Then I'm going to go back into, continue sewing this in. This sucker is going to be stuck there, but that's what you want anyway. You don't want your hair to fall out. When I'm back out again, I'm going to take the other strand and tie a double knot. Okay. I'm going to go in. Out one more time. Double knot. just going to start cutting away. Okay, so we have our hair here, and it says you can make it as short as you want. All right. Now I'm just going to take the brown and sew it down here. Actually no. We're going to need this to sew around the neck, but we're going to attach the arms first. So what we're going to try to do here is weave this end piece in and out of the arm as best as you can. If not, you can just trim it. Oh, I messed up. Alright, I totally ran out of yarn, but they wanted you to do 4 of these. They just didn't say it. Ugh. Wait, no. Oh, you have to fold it in half? Dang, that's tiny. Alright, I made the right amount of... Alright, weave it in and out anyway. We're going to make the world's smallest wing. I think it would look fine with that, but whatever. Alright, my bad. So we're going to fold our little rectangle. Man, that's insane. And we're going to sew the side, 2 sides. We're going to make the end round so that it looks like an arm. And then we're going to stuff it. This is crazy small. Okay. So I went down one end and I'm going to bring the stitches back around to go up the side. And then we're going to stuff. So grab your packet. We're going to get a very small piece. You can remove the felt stickers. I'm going to get a very small piece. Whatever you get for one arm, you want to have for the other. So if this is going to be for one arm, try to gauge to see if you have the same amount for the other arm. Otherwise, you're going to have 2 different arm sizes. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to stuff the arm. And then we're going to sew right onto the body. Okay, so we are doing this, the side of the body. The seam here we can have in the back just to hide it. So this side will be the prettier side. And we'll just sew on the body, I mean the arm. Just not sure where to sew it to. But I'm just gonna sew it in between the green and the brown. Then we're going to come inside the tube here, and we're going to tie ourselves a knot. And so that's the other reason to try to do everything while it's not stuffed, so that you can hide all your stitches, all your excess pieces. Alright, so when we come back, I'm going to have the other arm sewn on here. And then we'll continue with the rest of the body. Alright, so I'm going to thread up this here. And we are going to come back around to sew the side. Okay. Again, once we made it to the other side, we're going to tie a knot to secure the side, because we'll have to do another gather stitch. Grab your stuffing, and it's better to do this in pieces, so just break your stuffing up into pieces. And start filling your duck. So while you have this in pieces, you're able to direct it where you want it to go. So if you feel like one area is not filled out, you can just take a little piece and put it in the area that you need to. It looks like there isn't going to be a lot of stuffing for this, so it's going to be very plushy. I do recommend you get your own stuffing. I do have an Amazon storefront and have clicked on some fiberfill that you can get. I ended up getting a 32-ounce bag, which is a lot. So just make sure that you're getting the right weights for that. Oh, I have to do the neck. Oh, no. Alright, well, I do have this little piece. Yeah, we'll just save it for the end. Okay, so we're gonna do another gather stitch here. once you reach the other side, we're going to pull this closed. And then again, just to make sure that it is completely closed, I'm going to cross my stitches. And then once you've done that, you can tie yourself a knot. And then actually I have a lot, so I'm gonna kind of try to snake it up so I can do that neck thing. So stick your needle right where that knot comes out, and then I'm gonna go, let's go to the back here. I'm gonna go in between the green and the brown. Okay, make sure that your stuffing is distributed to where you want it. Then we're going to just go around the neck like this. It seems like it needs to actually be around here, so let me go here, right above the wings. I don't even know why they bothered with this stripey thing. Alright, once you've pulled that, we're going to tie a knot. I think it would have helped if we had more stuffing. But once you've done that, we can stick our needle in and randomly come out anywhere. We're going to cut this flush to the surface, and then you can squeeze it up to lose that end. Now I just gotta fluff this up to look something like you don't see the stripe because I don't know, they had probably more stuffing. If we had more stuffing, it would probably fill out fuller and kind of remove those stripes, but oh well. So we are going to put on our face now. So let's get our beak. Oh, let me get the glue gun. I forgot. It's been a while. I like to use a glue gun. Alright. So I'm going to take out this beak here. And I'm going to use a little tweezer so that my fingers don't touch the glue. Now you can sew around the edges if you want, or you can use fabric glue. I'm just going to use a glue gun. Alright, so we're going to place this in the middle of the face. So let's go right here. Press down and hold it. So part of it's going to stick, part of it's going to be the glue gun. Once we have the beak down, we can put the eyes on. Okay. Then we're going to put on the feet. Okay, last one. Okay. So that is that. Just going to turn off my glue gun here. But this is what we're working with. Comment below, let me know how it went. Click that like button if you're liking what you're seeing. Click that like button if you're going to go and try to make this Mr. Mallard yourself. Here's a side-by-side. Okay. So thank you so much, you guys, for watching. This is Hooked on Needles and Crafts. Please share, like, and subscribe for future videos. And I'll see you again next time. Thanks. Bye.